Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's Yom Hashoah Holocaust Remembrance Ceremony. I'm Lisa Katz, Newcastle's Town Supervisor, and I would like to thank our town's Holocaust and Human Rights Committee, Greeley's Enough Club, and our town's staff and Recreation and Parks Department for organizing tonight's program, and to representatives from Governor Hochul and State Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins' offices, County Executive George Latimer, Rabbi Aaron Brusso, Rabbi David Greenberg, Rabbi Jonathan Jaffe, Rabbi Lisa Sachs, Cantor Gil Ezring, and Reverend McJunkin for what I know will be your heartfelt and meaningful contributions to this event. Tonight, we set aside time to remember the Holocaust and to honor the memory of the 6 million innocent men, women, and children who were sent to their deaths simply because of their Jewish faith, as well as the many others who died because of their beliefs or ideologies. We also honor tonight those who fought back and the many saviors who refused to be mere bystanders to these atrocities. Tonight, we also resolve that never again shall we allow hatred and ignorance to reign. We vow to be upstanders, to speak out against injustice, to value and celebrate our differences and the dignity of every human being, and to do all we can to prevent and end evil in our time, whenever and wherever it may appear. This will not be an easy task. Every day we hear about injustices, prejudices, and acts of war. We must look into our hearts, speak out, and fight for what we know is right. Only then can we ever truly hope to prevent a tragedy like the Holocaust from reoccurring. Only then can we fulfill our promise of never again. As Elie Wiesel said, the philosophers are wrong. It is not words that kill, but it is silence. Now I will turn the program over to Ali Rosenberg and Stacy Seance, the co-chairs of our Holocaust and Human Rights Committee.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening. I am Ali Rosenberg.
And I am Stacy Science. We are the co-chairs of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee.
Thank you for joining us for this special evening. We were so looking forward to being in person for the first time since we opened the memorial in November of 2019. But we are sorry, the weather just didn't want to cooperate today. In order to bring the memorial to you, we are now sharing recent photos of the Newcastle Holocaust Memorial where you can see the daffodils are in bloom. We would like to take a moment to recognize the Newcastle Town Board for their continued support of the efforts of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. We would also like to recognize Ike Cuzio, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, and his team, Jonathan Marcondes, Parks Foreman, Manuel Coombe, John Markowitz, Giuseppe Tolli, Lucas O'Kell, Rob Paterno, and John Delamo for beautifully maintaining the Newcastle Holocaust Memorial for the residents of our community to have a place to reflect and remember.
As the number of survivors dwindle and hate continues to rise, it is more important than ever for the next generation to come together to observe Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. As we come together tonight, remembering the Holocaust, it is important to recognize the atrocities occurring today to the Rohingya in Myanmar, the Uyghurs in China, and the people of Ukraine whose lives have been forever altered. We need to counter hate with acts of kindness and show up for those who are the targets of hate and surround them with love and support.
We know there are so many people who would like to help. If you need assistance finding an organization that speaks to you, please reach out to Stacy and me in our individual capacity. By taking direct action together, we can be a force for good and each play a small part in helping those who need it. Tonight, we want to acknowledge the presence of 3 Holocaust survivors who we are honored to have with us on the Zoom this evening. Trudy Album, Arlette Baker, and Mark Kohler. We also want to acknowledge the presence of Brandon Lloyd, representative from the governor's office, Lindsay Houlihan, representative from State Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins' office, and Westchester County Executive George Latimer.
Thank you. And we also would like to acknowledge Vidat Gashi. Tonight, and now we will welcome County Executive George Latimer, who will give some remarks.
Thank you very much, Alexandra and Stacy. And we want to thank Supervisor Lisa Katz, all the people that put this on. We would like to be all together in person, but we're happy that we're all together in this fashion, so we show that solidarity. We have two challenges each year when Yom HaShoah rolls around. It is to remember and to never forget. And I view them in my mind as two separate things. The remembrances of those lives lost, those families that were forever affected. People of my age and generation would be the children of the Holocaust survivors, my contemporaries, and they talk about their aunts and their uncles that died during the Holocaust, and to remember those people so that their memories be a blessing to them to this day. But also to never forget the things that led up to the Holocaust, the hatred and the systematic effort by a government, by the Nazi control of the German government, how a country that was otherwise modern and cultured in the 1930s with political turmoil were taken over and led to this horrific reality, and that we never forget that this can happen again. It has happened in other countries in the world since then. It can happen again. And we have to be ever vigilant to make sure that we don't let the diminution of the free press and the diminution of the independent judiciary and the diminution of our brotherhood and sisterhood with each other lead us to another such terrible thing. May we remember, may we never forget, and thank you for making sure that doesn't happen in this time and place in Newcastle.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer, for your inspirational words and for joining us for this special ceremony tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for our third annual Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Commemoration. My name is Gabe Adams.
And my name is Jack Rosenberg. We are the co-presidents of Enough. We'd like to recognize our advisor, Helen Harrison, and thank her for all the work she has done for our club.
Yom HaShoah is about reflecting on the past and using those lessons to help create a better future. Recently, hate has become acceptable. It would be so easy to turn our backs and ignore the hate, but that's what happened 77 years ago. Yom HaShoah is about remembering the past to help create a better future. The mission of our club, Enough, which stands for Educate Now in Understanding Genocide and Hate, is to empower students to stand up to all hate and to develop a community of acceptance through education and the understanding of people's differences. As the next generation, we understand that we have a responsibility to listen to the stories of the Holocaust, to retell these stories, and to educate each other.
Elie Wiesel once asked, why write the memories of the Holocaust? Why share the experiences of the Holocaust? For the dead, it is too late. His answer, because it is never too late for our children. Next, I would like to introduce Anuja Joshi and Pat Pollock, members of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. Also, Benny Goldenberg and Elliot Science, Vice President, Student Liaisons from Enough to the Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. They will announce the winners of the third annual Writing and Arts Contest for Holocaust Remembrance. The contest is an opportunity for students to reflect and apply the lessons of the Holocaust to today.
Good evening. My name is Pat Pollock, and I'm a longtime resident of Newcastle, the former nurse at Bell School, and a proud member of the Holocaust and Human Rights Commission. The mission of this committee is to raise the level of awareness and promote education with the hope of creating a community of upstanders who will be each other's allies. This is our third annual Holocaust and Human Rights Art and Writing Contest. Once again, the submissions by high school students and middle school students were exceptional. We received artwork, poetry, and essays that conveys students' emotional understanding of what survivors experienced during the Holocaust, how this is relevant to today, and what it means to be an upstander. The judging was based on creativity, style, originality, and thoughtfulness. The winners of the art contest will be on display at Town Hall, and the winners of the essay contest will be on our website. Anuja Joshi will now announce the high school winners.
Thank you, Pat. The winners of the high school essay contest are honorable mention, Neil Roy and Mariel Siegel. Third place, Alexa Trube. Second place, Alyssa Matheson. And first place of the high school essay contest goes to Ian Cressman. We invite Ian to read his essay.
Thank you. Some nights I go camping. From my seat on an aged log, rings worn and bark from an age past, I gaze at the stars, bright points of light twinkling in patchworks of navy blue, sewn together into the quilt of the night sky. When my neck grows tired and the crackle of the campfire beckons, I stare at the mesmerizing flames waving back and forth in the gentle breeze. The fire warms my soul. But that flame, those stars, had drastically different meanings on the grounds of Germany's concentration camps. The stars meant a cold night, huddling together as wind chilled the bones, shivering and shaking as life drained from nearby faces. The flames produced black smoke that smelled of flesh, tasted of death. How could these two worlds share the same earth? Acceptance is impossible, but belief is necessary. As the number of Holocaust survivors continues to dwindle, firsthand experiences alone will inevitably fail to keep the Holocaust remembered. However, as survivor Elie Wiesel once stated, listening to a witness makes you a witness. Those who witness the stories and their trauma, their shock and their pain, wield power as well. Especially as society continues leaping towards the future, witnesses must ground us to our past, helping us to remember the suffering and horror caused by carelessness and the unwillingness for confrontation. Witnesses are crucial to keep the Holocaust alive in the archives of humanity's memory. The good news? Witnesses are everywhere. From the very creation of Holocaust Remembrance Day, witnesses have been birthed. From the documentaries, the interviews, the stories passed between generations, witnesses have sprouted. And from the ashes of genocide, witnesses have begun to breathe life. Now, it rests upon us to facilitate their growth, provide opportunities for learning, continue the legacies of Holocaust survivors. As one grasps a lamp in a dark corridor, we must hold them tight, lest they slip between our fingers and crash to the ground, their light dissipating into the night sky. Back to the stars. The stars that bless our vision and cascade our world in soft, silvery light. The stars that prick our eyes as the wind draws their moisture, cold light reflecting a cold heart. History and the present are inextricably linked, but to retain the purest, most important messages, they cannot simply be examined through a scholar's lens. Rather, survivors and witnesses must lend us their telescopes so decades past can be understood. And if it hurts to look, if the light tears at our eyes, we must stare anyway. No matter where our gaze falls, the stars continue to shine, and the fire continues to burn. As witnesses, it's our duty, our burden, to stoke it, to control it. The Holocaust ended nearly 70 years ago, but its reverberations are still being felt around the world. They need to be felt. For the first step in the perpetuation and expansion of current world atrocities is the denial of those residing in our footprints. Thank you.
Thank you. The winners of the high school art contest are honorable mention, Lori Zellickson. Third place, Alyssa Matheson. We would like to thank Alyssa for entering and winning in both categories. Second place, Icarus Barrios. And first place of the high school art contest goes to Jenna Shaken. We invite Jenna to read her artist statement and share her artwork. First place, Jenna.
Thank you. This piece depicts the hope and rebirth my family experienced following the immense loss of life and pain from the Holocaust. The image that I drew on top of the war headlines was taken from a photograph of my grandfather, his twin brother, and their father in a displaced persons camp in Germany. My great-grandparents fled Poland during the war, only returning to discover the rest of their family was murdered. This image portrays the idea that from all of their loss came new life and a hope for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna.
All right, now Benny Goldenberg and I will announce the winners of the middle school essay and art contest. The winners of the middle school essay contest are honorable mention, Zoya Nabil. Third place, Ariel Goldner. Second place, Maya Levine. And first place of the middle school essay contest goes to Phoebe Rosenberg. We invite Phoebe to read her essay.
Thank you. The title of my essay is A Look at Our Past and Our Future. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. This powerful quote by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. means it is up to regular people like you and me to not stand idly by and be a witness to injustice. We must take action. By taking action, we become upstanders, not bystanders. It is our responsibility as citizens of the world to be upstanders in our schools, our community, and in the world. Unfortunately, there have been times in history when we could have used more upstanders. The Holocaust, the mass murder of Jewish people during World War II, was such a time. Although the Holocaust was one of the most horrific atrocities that ever happened in human history, there are courageous upstanders who risked their own lives to rescue thousands of Jewish people who would have otherwise perished. The Holocaust started in 1941 in Germany and lasted for years. The Holocaust happened because after Germany lost World War I, Adolf Hitler blamed the loss on Jews and said the only solution was to eliminate all Jewish people. Subsequently, Jewish people in Germany were rounded up and sent to concentration camps where they were killed. Shockingly, the citizens of Germany and neighboring countries stood by and allowed this genocide to happen. Irina Sendler, a Catholic social worker in Poland, was one of the incredible upstanders during the Holocaust. She saved 2,500 Jewish children from the Warsaw Ghetto from 1942 to 1943. She saved these innocent children by working in the Children's Division of Zagoda, a Polish underground network of women whose mission was to save Jewish children from the death camps. She worked secretly and tirelessly to save as many Jewish children as possible. Irina Sendler's actions made her an upstander in that she risked her own life and the lives of her family to save others. She smuggled hundreds of Jewish babies and children out of the Warsaw Ghetto and rehomed them with new identities. Miss Sendler defied the government because she knew right from wrong, and she held strong to her beliefs. She would not be a bystander to the murder of countless innocent children. She often had to make quick and risky decisions in order to be an upstander. Eventually, her actions led to her arrest, and she was sentenced to death, but was freed when someone bribed her guards. She lived the rest of her life as a social worker who helped others, but her legacy is that she and her network saved thousands of Jewish children from the death camps. I was an upstander once, just like Irina Sendler. This past year, I was in gym class with a girl who had a disability. The gym teacher said, "Find a partner." Everyone picked their friends, but nobody asked the girl with the disability to join in. I felt bad that nobody asked her to be her partner. That's when I realized I should ask her. I did just that, and she said yes. Ever since then, other people have been asking her to join in, and she has never been alone in gym class since. Obviously, my actions as an upstander were not to the degree of Irina Sendler. I didn't save any lives by asking someone to be my partner. However, if we all make small decisions to be an upstander, together we can change lives. Irina and I made a difference by making the often unpopular choice to be an upstander. No one will ask you to be an upstander. That is up to you and your conscience. That is what Irina Sendler and I did. Nobody asked us to do it. We did it ourselves. Bystanders, on the other hand, take the easy way out by doing nothing. Bystanders during the Holocaust didn't have the courage to make a difference. They stood by and allowed fellow humans to be murdered. Today, as we all know, Russia and Ukraine are at war. People are comparing this war to the Holocaust since innocent people are being ruthlessly killed. However, during the Holocaust, there were very few upstanders, where areas today there are thousands or even millions. Even though there are upstanders around the world trying to help Ukraine right now, it's simply not enough. If everyone in the world made the choice to take action against injustice, we could change the future. We need to learn from the lessons of our past. We need to stand up. We need more Irenas in this world. Thank you.
Now I will read the winners of the middle school art contest. An honorable mention to Gabriel Ferro Martinez. In third place, Emily Vu. Second place, Olivia Reagan. And in first place of the middle school art contest goes to Erin Suk. We invite Erin to read her artist statement and share her artwork.
The title of my piece is Remembrance of Children of the Holocaust, and it shows children who had been taken away from their homes and had been killed by the Nazis. The reason I chose this theme was because I was shocked to know that even children my age suffered from the Holocaust. I used a black watercolor pencil and water for a detailed description of their youth when the children were undermined from their residence. To express the blood, I mixed different shades of red and shook a paintbrush to get little droplets of the mixture onto the painting. I think it is very important that we remember this event because remembering will ensure that this kind of thing will never happen again.
We'd now like to welcome Benny Prober, who will introduce our keynote speaker.
It is my honor tonight to introduce you to my mom, Mrs. Bettina Prober. When writing this introduction, I cannot find words to describe my mom. She is the kindest, most loving, and best mahjong player you'll ever meet. My mom grew up in Houston, Texas, before going to Northwestern and moving shortly to New York. She is the best mother to 3 fantastic boys and a daughter to a miracle. I say miracle because my grandfather survived the Holocaust, while 6 million other Jews did not. Tonight, my mother will be sharing the story of that miracle. My grandfather's name was Tomas Otzel. Even though I never got the opportunity to meet him, I've always felt like I knew him. I don't know whether it is how close of loving family I have or my grandfather and I both being colorblind. I just always felt the connection. If I ever had the chance to say one word to my grandfather, it would be how. How do the Nazis get away with killing 6 million innocent Jews? How do we just live on after the atrocities of the Holocaust? How did you survive? These questions come up daily as we search for answers to why Hitler carried out his final solution. One night, my mother and I were going through my grandfather's documents from the Holocaust. After using Google Translate to turn the documents into English, I lost my breath. I cannot believe how much the Nazis dehumanized innocent people just because of what they believed in. Even though we're all different, does not mean that we can discriminate against others. There is never anything wrong with different. As Elie Wiesel once said, to forget the dead will be akin to killing them a second time. The only way to never forget the dead and help prevent another mass genocide, even though genocides are sadly still going on as we speak, is to educate. It is necessary to take what we learned about the actions of the Nazis and teach them to the next generation. Education is our only hope. We educate to better ourselves, we educate to better others, and we educate to never forget. Now, please join me in welcoming Bettina Prober to share my grandfather's miracle story.
Thanks, Ben. This is my father's story. I know when you look at me and I say my dad, or Ben says his grandfather, you think of someone much older. So I'm going to call him by his first name throughout this talk because he wasn't yet my dad or anyone's grandfather when this happened. He was just 13. His name was Tomas. Tomas came from a comfortable middle-class family in a part of Hungary that was highly assimilated. His family were Hungarians above all, Jewish only by religion. He and his mother lived with his grandparents. Though his father died when he was 5, his younger years were happy ones, shared with aunts, uncles, and cousins. On September 1st, 1939, everything changed. The war had begun. He was only 9, but he remembered hearing tidbits of information. He knew it had something to do with being Jewish. He had already felt the stirrings of anti-Semitism with the passage of the racial laws in Hungary in 1938. At that time, Jews were denied equal citizenship. They were not allowed to intermarry, participate in a variety of professions, or be employed by the government. But as a young boy, they didn't affect him much. The worst of it was that he and his friends sometimes encountered kids on the street who shouted anti-Semitic slogans at them, trying to pick a fight. At the age of 12, he was forced to take part in a service program. He and other Jewish children were forced to clean toilets in the pre-military school, which the non-Jewish children attended. It was a hateful, disgusting job. But by now, Tomas understood that as a Jew, he would have to accept these humiliations. In 1944, conditions for Jews went from bad to worse. Germany invaded Hungary. Several more anti-Jewish decrees were passed. Now, Tomas and all the other Jews had to wear a yellow star. Their house was not even theirs anymore. German soldiers arrived one day and told Tomas's family that they would be headquartered there now. They took over the front of the house and forced Tomas, his mom, and two grandmothers to live in two small back rooms. He was upset by the injustice of this, but his mother tried to reassure him. The soldiers allowed them to keep a small radio, so they knew the Allies were making strides against the Germans. We just had to put up with this a little longer, they thought. The war will end soon. But that was not the case. On April 26, 1944, exactly 78 years ago today, Tomas and his family woke up to a dire situation. Hundreds of flyers blanketed the streets. They said no person wearing a yellow star was to leave the house under threat of death. They were being arrested. Soon, soldiers started banging on their front door. As his mom opened it, they pushed past her, shouting with guns drawn, pointing directly at Tomas. They shouted that the family was under arrest and gave them 2 hours to pack up all of their belongings. In shock, the family did as they were told. They rushed around the house, grabbing clothes, bedding, and food. They could only take what they could carry. As they left their home, they joined the rest of the Jews from their hometown, about 1,000 in all, heading toward their small synagogue. Once inside, the German authorities locked the doors behind them. They soon realized that their beloved synagogue, a place usually reserved for mitzvahs, for joy, for learning and prayer, was turning into a prison. Inside, Tomas and his family searched around for some small space they could claim as their own. They sat down and waited. Minutes and hours stretched into days. The food they had packed became scarce. No one knew how long they would be held for, so no one had brought enough. Everyone pooled their resources so they could make the most of the little they had. Despite the difficult situation, they were not hopeless. They knew the Allies were advancing and believed the war would be over soon. They convinced themselves that this terrible living situation was only temporary. They created a community within the synagogue. Some took care of the elderly, others formed study groups with the kids. After 3 long weeks, their German captors told them to pack up. They were finally leaving, but they would not be heading home. Instead, on May 17th, 1944, the whole group was sent to the railway station. Once there, Tomas heard some murmurings among the older teens and adults discussing trying to flee. But others quickly shushed them, arguing that all of them would be punished if a few attempted to escape. The consensus was it was best to stay altogether. So together, they boarded the cattle cars and began their journey to the unknown. The boxcar was packed tightly with only one small window offering fresh air. No one was allowed out, even to use the restroom. After 3 long days, they arrived at Auschwitz. Tomas and the other occupants strained to see outside through the tiny window. They could see men, women, and children, giving them hope that their families could stay together. The train sat on the siding for another night, one that was filled with restless anticipation and fear of what was to come in the morning. Tomas was awakened by shouts and bald people dressed in striped prison uniforms banging on the doors of the boxcars. They had walking sticks, which they used as pokers to move the new arrivals into the right lines. Despite the scary wake-up call, he wasn't discouraged at first. It was a beautiful day, and in the distance, he could hear an orchestra playing. But soon, he realized that they were being separated into groups. One group for children, their mothers, and the elderly, and another for workers, able-bodied men and women between the ages of about 18 and 40. As he was only 13, he quickly realized that he and his mother would be placed in the group with the elderly. At first, he thought nothing of it, but then a miracle. He was tall for his age, so one of the prisoners separating the group told him to say he was older, so he would be allowed to work. He passed this information on to his best friend, who was on the same transport as him, but his friend did not want to leave his mother. Though Tomas didn't know it then, this crucial piece of information and his decision to take this advice given to him by one of the unknown prisoners tasked with separating the newcomers saved his life. Once they were separated into two groups, the selection process started. The groups filed by Nazi soldiers, led by the infamous Dr. Mengele, who would decide if they were able to work or not. When he got to the front of the line, the soldiers looked at Tomas and asked his age. He nervously replied, 17. To his great relief, he was deemed fit for work. He and his group went one direction, while he noticed that all of the others, the old, the young, and the mothers with children, including his friend who did not wish to leave his mother, went another. As the groups were being led away, Tomas and his mom caught one last glimpse of each other. He was relieved to see that she too was in a group that had passed inspection. In later years, he would reflect on this last sighting with some comfort, as he knew that his mom would realize that he too would be among the people who at least had some hope of survival. Prisoners who were already at the camp tried to explain the depth of evil at Auschwitz. As Tomas recalled in his oral testimony for the Yad Vashem Museum in Israel, they were pointing out the smoke and the smell. At the beginning, we didn't believe it all. It could not possibly be true. But as the day passed, it started to dawn on us that maybe it could be true, that we were survivors and all the rest of our families were already dead. After a while, Tomas and his group came upon a lime pond. He could see a woman prisoner struggling in the pond and an SS guard trying to help pull her out with a pole. But as he got closer, he realized the guard was not offering assistance. She was beating the prisoner, drowning her. He and his group also passed a different group of prisoners being herded into a large building. The SS guard who was leading his group turned to watch and laugh. Later, Tomas would realize that building was a gas chamber. The guard was laughing at the people being sent to their deaths. He now realized the grave danger he was in. After a day of endless marches, endless counting, and endless staying in line to be counted, Tomas and the other prisoners were given watery, tasteless beet soup for dinner, and then told to line up once again for inspection. Each prisoner was given a job. Everyone waited with apprehension to see who would work in the kitchens and who would be sent to the Polish coal mines. They knew that working in the mines was a death sentence. When the commander got to Tomas, he took one look at him and, probably due to his youthful appearance, decided that he would be his personal servant. His luck was holding out. The first night, he was hungry, but even more thirsty and cold. He managed to find a handkerchief-sized piece of cloth, which he used as a blanket, constantly moving it to whichever part of his body was the coldest. After a few days, it was decided that the sub-camp Tomas was in was to be converted to a women's camp. As the women began arriving, Tomas noticed that their appearance was already vastly different from when he had last seen them at the arrival gates. Their clothes had been replaced by prison uniforms. Their skin had become sallow. Even their hair had been shaved. And they all had the same desperate look in their eyes as they crowded around Tomas and the other male prisoners. They wanted to know if the terrible rumor they had been hearing was true. that their children had been killed. Tomas knew they were looking to him for some shred of hope, but he had none to give. He reluctantly told them the awful truth. All around him, women began wailing with despair. At just 13, Tomas had never experienced anything so terrible. Since the new prisoners were waiting for their permanent placement, they had yet to be tattooed. This gave Tomas some hope, as he had learned that without a tattoo, there was a chance he could still be transferred to a different camp, perhaps a worth camp, not a death camp like Auschwitz. But in order to qualify for that type of transfer, he needed an occupation, which at the age of 13, he didn't have. When he was finally put into the tattooed line, he knew he had to get out. With a racing heart, he made his way to the front, pretending to have already been tattooed. He quickly got into a different line where other soldiers were recording names, ages, and occupations of all the prisoners. His heart continued to beat wildly as he again lied to the guards. He said he was 17 and an experienced rubble remover and bricklayer, hoping that would be an occupation needed in war-torn Germany. The soldier registered his information and he was approved for transfer. After several more days of waiting and 3 awful weeks in Auschwitz, he was again loaded on a boxcar and finally left for good. On June 10th, 1944, after several days on the train, they arrived at their new camp, Buchenwald. As Tomas left Auschwitz behind, he felt hopeful, but that soon changed. The SS soldiers at Buchenwald began to herd the new arrivals toward the showers. At Auschwitz, many showers spewed lethal gas, not water. Tomas and the others began to panic, waiting to see what would happen. Luckily, it was water, and they all breathed a huge sigh of relief. The next 10 months were brutal, filled with countless terrors, including illness after illness, an attack by a guard dog, and the near certain knowledge that his mother and the rest of his family had been killed. Though only 14 now, he joined the resistance movement at the camp, hoping to somehow thwart the evil of the Nazis. There was some hope. There was talk of the Allies advancing each day. In the distance, he and the other prisoners could even see the American tanks. But on April 10th, 1945, as Tomas was heading back to the barracks, he heard an SS officer call his number through the loudspeaker, telling him to report to the front gate at once. He knew being asked to report to the front gate meant only one thing. The SS wanted to interrogate him, or worse. As he said, it was very hard to decide whether to go or not to go and be questioned, possibly tortured, or not to go and let them find me and treat me even worse. The Americans were so close. I decided to wait at least one night, claiming that I didn't hear my number. He made his way back to his barracks, where he hid for the next several hours. As he was waiting, he reached for the few bread crusts he had managed to save over the past weeks. He ate them slowly, savoring each bite until nothing was left. I may as well eat everything, he thought to himself. If I'm not killed in the next few hours, I will be free. Suddenly, shots rang out. He ran out of the barracks and joined a group going to fight the Germans. Several hours later, the Americans arrived. It was April 11th, 1945. He was free. Though my father celebrated that day, it was bittersweet. He would soon learn that his entire family had been killed. Out of the 1,000 Jews who had been locked in that synagogue, only 400 survived. At 14, he was the youngest. He spent the next 6 months as a refugee. Finally, one of his uncles, his father's only surviving brother, who had moved to Italy before the war, heard over the radio that Tomas was alive during a Red Cross program broadcasting lists of survivors. It took Tomas another 6 months to finally reach Italy, where his uncle and aunt raised him as their own from the age of 15. He learned Italian, finished high school, in college and earned a doctorate in mass spectrometry, which is a type of chemistry. In the early 1950s, he immigrated to the United States to work for Exxon in Baytown, Texas, where he met my mother and started a family. He and my mother named us, his children, after the family he lost to carry on the legacy. My brother Joseph, named after his father Joseph. My brother Stefan, named after his uncle Stefan. My sister Elizabeth, named after his mother Erzsébet. And me, Bettina Vera, named after his favorite and beloved cousin, who was only 11 when she was killed. I have 3 kids of my own now, and though my father never met them, all 3 of them carry a piece of him in some way. My oldest son is an engineer. He is my father's scientific intellect. My middle son bears an uncanny resemblance to him. My youngest son has a confidence of a much older person, something my father must have possessed to make those crucial life-saving decisions when he was just 13. My father's miraculous survival can be attributed to many factors: his youth, his good health, his determination, and just plain luck. But mostly, his ability to survive the horror of the Holocaust started with just one person, that unnamed prisoner who told him to say that he was older, saving his life. Tonight, if you take away one thing, I hope it's this: that the actions each of us take as individuals can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your father's incredible story with us this evening. We are now witnesses of his story and we will never forget. It is now my honor to introduce Holocaust survivor Trudy Album, who will share a few words and help us light the memorial candles.
I was born in Czechoslovakia, then we became Hungary in 1929. So I'm an old person. When I was 15 years old, I was taken to a concentration camp. I was the oldest. I had 2 younger sisters, a mother, a father. In life, I had a happy childhood. I was raised modern Orthodox. I still keep the religion. And I would never forsake. I'm a proud Jew. And it was many years I could not speak about the Holocaust until I read an article by Elie Wiesel. And the last sentence was, when they buried the last survivor, they will bury a living witness. And then it came to me that in the dark days, we promised each other, whoever will survive will tell the world what was happening, what was done to the Jews. I am heartbroken when I see hatred towards any other human being or religion or color of the skin. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able to speak in the schools whenever I am asked. Ask the young people to wipe the word hatred out of their vocabulary. We are responsible for each other. We are our brother's keeper. Never, never hate anyone. And if you see that somebody is demeaning the next person, stand up for them. And when I read and hear all of you young people, I know that I'm leaving this world in the very, very good hands. You will keep the memory of this Holocaust alive you will make sure that no hatred will come to any other human being. And I'm grateful for that. I am honored to be here tonight, and it makes me feel good to see all you young, enthusiastic, intelligent young people. And I have great hope in the future. I'd like to thank Ali for inviting me to this memorial. It's very, very meaningful for me when I see the daffodils. In my synagogue, we planted hundreds and hundreds of daffodils. And it reminds us of the past. And each spring, when they come alive, when they come out again, that there's a future. And that I will leave the world in very capable hands. Because in your life, when you will hear that the Holocaust never happened, you could tell them it sure did. I met an old lady. She was there. Her family was killed. And just be proud of who you are. Appreciate your education and the freedom that you live in a good country. Thank you so much. I wish you well. And it's an honor for me to be here today. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you, Trudy, so much. Thank you. I know your words just touched everyone in the most meaningful way. So we'd like to continue now and hear from our student, Spencer Beeren.
Tonight, we will light 7 candles. We light 6 candles in memory of Trudy's family and the 6 million Jews who were persecuted and murdered simply because of who they were and what they believed.
We lit a 7th candle in memory of the millions of other groups of men, women and children who were discriminated against by the Nazis and who perished by their hands, the communists, the Roma, and the Sinti, the LGBTQ+ community, the disabled, and all those or dared to oppose Nazism.
We will now light the candles.
Thank you to Trudy and the students of Enough for their very special candle lighting ceremony. My name is Solveig McShay, and I'm a member of the Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. And speaking on behalf of the committee tonight, it is our honor to dedicate a bench in the Newcastle Holocaust Memorial in loving memory of Holocaust survivor Jack Feldman, grandfather of Stacy Science and great-grandfather of Elliot and Jared Science. If we were there, I would invite you or invite them up to stand by us while we read the inscription, but I will take the opportunity to invite you to go visit the memorial for yourself. But in the meantime, I will read the inscription so that you can all know what it says. In loving memory of Jack Feldman, Great Poppy, January 1st, 1926, through December 20th, 2021, survivor of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And now I will pass to Stacy for a few thoughts on Great Poppy.
Thank you. It means so much to our family to have a community bench at the Town of Newcastle Holocaust Memorial dedicated to our Great Poppy. Jack Feldman, fondly known as Great Poppy, was born in 1926 in Poland. At the age of 14, he was grabbed by a Nazi soldier off the street and sent to a series of labor and death camps, ultimately to Auschwitz-Birkenau. Great Poppy lost his parents, his siblings, his childhood, and his entire world as he knew it. Yet he was resilient. After experiencing the worst humanity had to offer, he still responded with the best of the human spirit. He chose life. After surviving the war, Great Poppy came to New York and opened a fish market. He became a very popular merchant on the street. No one could understand his thick Polish accent, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't because of his jokes. No, it was because despite his past, he always had a smile and would never turn away a hungry customer. He would give free fish to anyone who asked, whether a neighbor or a total stranger. He knew what hunger was, and he could not bear to witness it. And he chose community. From Great Poppy, we have learned that the Holocaust is not just a story about hate. It's a story of resilience, humanity, love, and kindness. In a world too full of hate, I remain optimistic that if people come together as a community, we can overcome hate and achieve a better tomorrow. When you sit on this newly dedicated bench, I hope you think of two important lessons from our Great Poppy. One, no matter what challenges you might face in life, like Great Poppy, you too can be resilient. And two, it is so important to be kind to everyone and to be an active member of your community. May this bench serve as a constant reminder to us all. Thank you. At this time, we would like to welcome Rabbi Brusso, Rabbi Greenberg, Rabbi Jaffe, and Rabbi Sachs, who will lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish.
Thank you, Stacy. If everyone would please rise. Yitgadal, Auschwitz, Vayitgadash, Lodz, Shemei Rabbah, Ponar, Ve'alma Divra Chirutei, Babi Yar, Ve'amlich Malchutei, Maidanek, V'chayachon Uvyomechon, Birkenau, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Kovno, Va'agala Uvizlan Kariv, Janauska, V'imru Amen. Together, Yehe Shmei Rabba Mivarach Leolam Ulalmei Almaya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach Theresienstadt, v'yitba'ar v'yitramam Buchenwald, v'yitnaseh v'yitadar Treblinka, v'yitale v'yitalal Vilna, Shemed Kudisha Brichu Bergen-Belsen.
Le'elah Malthausen, Min Kol Birchata B'Shirata, Dachau, Tushbechata V'Nechemata, Minsk, Damiran Be'alma, Warsaw, V'Imru, Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleinu V'Alko Yisrael V'Imru, Amen. V'Sishalom B'Mramav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Alko Yisrael V'Imru, Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, rabbis. Please welcome Reverend McJunkin, who will share a reading with us this evening.
First They Came by Pastor Martin Niemöller. First they came for the communist, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
We thank you so much for joining us tonight. Your participation ensures that the world and our community will never forget.
As we conclude tonight's ceremony, we ask you to stand up if you are able to and hold your cell phone flashlight up high.
Lift your cell phone flashlight in the air. The light represents our survivors in the next generation that is helping to create a better future. Please repeat after me. We will never forget.
We will
never forget. Thank you.
We will conclude this evening with a song performed by Cantor Ezring.
Did the flowers cry? Did their petals fall? Did they live one day? Were they blown away? Were they there at all? Did the oceans roar? Did the trumpets call? Did they stop to pray on that godless day? Did they care at all? Were their eyes deceived? Were their hearts betrayed? Did they rise or fall? Did they march or crawl through the masquerade? If the world had cried long before the tears, would they not have died? Would they still be here? And what of the children with hope in their eyes? Would they be masters or slaves? And what of the future, the truths and the lies? Would there be children to save? They were much too young. They were much too old, finding any trace, each remembered face, memories bought and sold, pictures without hope, families without names. Were we all too blind? Did we trust mankind? Do we share the blame? Did we not believe? Were we not afraid? Were there stories told of forgotten souls, of the price they paid? If the world had cried long before the tears, would they not have died? Would they still be here? We must not forget. It has stained our lives. Were we blessed with time? Were we next in line? Why did we survive? If the world had cried for the missing years, for the love that died, would they still be here?
Thank
Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Cantor. Good night.